Morning, everybody. My name is David Clement. I'm the North American Affairs Manager with the Consumer Choice Center. The CCC is a global consumer group, and what we do is we focus on market access and consumer choice. Specifically, we advocate on behalf of consumers who want increased consumer choice and market access. And what we do is we highlight when government overreach or government regulation impacts consumers, which is what brings us here today. We call this press conference to raise awareness about how the plain packaging mandate for tobacco is now being applied to cannabis products. We as a consumer advocacy group feel that those regulations are heavy-handed, that they limit consumer choice, and that they ultimately impact millions of Canadians. Now, before we proceed, by no means should any of that be understood as an endorsement of any of those behaviors. That being said, we realize that consumers, adult consumers, are going to consume these legal products, and we wanted to raise awareness about how this impacts them and be a vehicle for consumers to raise their concerns directly. When the federal government announced its plain packaging mandate for tobacco, the Consumer Choice Center cautioned Canadians by saying that other products were going to be down the line. And although the slippery slope argument is often seen to be cliche, this is exactly what we're seeing with cannabis policy and how they're treating cannabis. What we've seen now is that Health Canada and our federal government is regulating products with complete disregard for consumers and complete disregard for a continuum of risk. Our worry now is what started with tobacco has moved to cannabis and now will move to other products, such as drinks, soft drinks, alcohol, and various other food items. That worry is what led us to launch the Smokers Vote initiative, where consumers of these products, specifically cannabis, cigars, or cigarettes, could raise their concerns. They could raise their concerns directly with their elected officials and act as a means of engaging in that direct democracy. Now, we did this for two reasons. Obviously, the first is for them to engage with their elected officials, but the second is to act as a warning to consumers of various other products in terms of why they should be concerned about these policies and the application of these policies to cannabis. Today, we've brought three consumers here to have their voices heard or have their concerns heard. And although there are only three consumers here today, we have had over 10,000 Canadians across the country in 223 federal ridings express their concerns to us. And so with that, I close my opening remarks and move to our guests.
Hi, my name is Kristen. I'm from Alberta. Holly, H-A-L-L-E. I take issues with these proposed legislations and how they're justifying these proposed standardization. They're claiming the lipstick packaging is appealing to women like myself and youth because it fits in small purses. I find the language that they use insulting. And I'm tired of government making decisions on behalf of vulnerable women, vulnerable groups. I'm capable of making my own choices. I understand smoking is terrible for you and for me. I also understand the need and the desire to deter youth, and that's all youth, not just young women, from smoking. But proposing policy that deprives us of our rights to consume the products that we want to consume based on the idea that we're unable to educate ourselves because we're women is far from a major win for the public. I don't see myself smoking for the rest of my life, but I find it insulting that we're being lumped together with children as far as being susceptible to marketing. And the words used to justify this policy show gender bias. And if the goal is to achieve 5% smoker use by 2035, then it should be covering all segments, not just women and youth. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it.
Good morning. My name is Dean T. Harris. I live in Hull, Quebec. I'm a consumer who is generally very skeptical every time a government tries to make choices on behalf of individuals or limits the ability of individuals to make informed decisions, particularly with the cannabis plain packaging legislation. I'm concerned that, one, it treats consenting adults like children who aren't capable of making decisions for themselves. Also, it limits our ability to get important information about the products we're going to consume. When it's a product that's going to go in your body, it's important to know what that product is and how one product differs from another. I'm particularly concerned about the restriction on desired effects being listed on product packaging, especially with a new product like cannabis that's becoming legal. There's going to be a lot of people who are unfamiliar with the product, and by limiting what information about desired effects are presented on packaging, it leaves consumers not knowing what they're going to be consuming and what the effects will be. So, like I said, I'm always skeptical when a government tries to make decisions on behalf of individuals or limits our choice. And particularly, I think that I want the most information I can have, and I don't trust a single body to give me that information. I want there to be a plurality of information out there so that myself and other consumers can make an informed decision. Thank you.
Bonjour, mon nom est Maxime Boivin. Je suis un consommateur concerné en fait pour la remise de l'information, surtout avec les paquets de cigarettes qui vont être neutralisés. Je pense que c'est de prendre des décisions pour le consommateur et c'est surtout de décider en fait qu'est-ce qui est mieux pour les gens et surtout de ne pas donner l'information complète quand on en fait l'achat. Donc, je crois que c'est pas nécessairement le marketing ou le packaging qui va faire une différence dans la consommation des gens. Je comprends qu'on veut faire un impact sur les jeunes. Par contre, je crois que c'est pas mal plus dans l'éducation et l'information qu'en dans le fait de se cacher derrière un rideau pour pouvoir obtenir le résultat qu'on veut. Merci.
So we've heard from concerned consumers across different product categories, and with that, we'll close and open for questions.
Do you represent manufacturers or strictly consumers?
Strictly consumers.
What kind of group are you? Like a consumers advocacy group? Or?
Yep. So we're strictly a consumer advocacy group, and we represent consumers, specifically those who focus or who care about issues surrounding consumer choice and market access. And so that can cover a variety of policies like the sharing economy, food policy. So in Canada, something like supply management, Airbnb, free trade, and how that impacts consumers. And so anytime we see government overreach that impacts consumer choice, our mission is to raise awareness about what those impacts are and mobilize consumers when we can.
This today, like less than a week before cannabis becomes legal, we've known for a while that these were the rules, and
Sure.
it's coming down the pipes on October 17th. So why today?
So we've been advocating on that issue specifically for, I would say, the last 2.5 months. There was very little traction in terms of attentiveness from legislators, of lack of interest in terms of even listening to the arguments about why these regulations shouldn't continue to be rolled down the line product by product. And so that's what sparked us to create this campaign, to bring consumers together who are impacted by this, and to act as a vehicle so they could have their voice heard. And then in terms of the specific timing, obviously it's relevant because a lot of people are excited, rightly so, about legalization, but they are not necessarily asking the right questions about some of the heavy-handed regulations that come along with it. And so that was the reason why we chose today, given its proximity to legalization day. Yep.
I wonder what you made about the different stance provinces have taken around, whether you combine in a government store, private store, limiting the number of stores, or whether or not you can smoke it just in your house or
Yep.
in anywhere else?
Yeah, we've worked extensively on that issue, advocating in favor of private retail, advocating in favor of limited forms or reasonable forms of public consumption so that you don't discriminate against low-income consumers who rent their homes. So we have done extensive work on that specifically over the last 2-3 months as those regulations have come out province by province.
And do you think those rules at the moment are useful? Are they allowing people to use it the way they want, or are they too restrictive in terms of where you can buy it and consume it?
It really depends on the province. So some provinces have embraced a private retail model, which is, from a consumer's perspective, a huge win. It's a huge win because it allows for more access, and more access is important because that is what will stamp out the black market. So a province like Ontario with an uncapped private model is obviously different than a retail market like in PEI, where it will only be government-run stores, and there will only be 4 of them, I believe. So it really does vary by province. Mm-hmm.
What will the rest of your campaign look like after this press conference? Will you be meeting with parliamentarians? Is there a presentation of a petition? What happens next?
So we have been having consumers email their elected officials directly for about 4 weeks now. We plan on carrying that out for the foreseeable future, probably until the middle of November. And we would hope that the outpouring of constituency concern at least starts a conversation where legislators will listen to our arguments and will maybe rethink some of the heavy-handed regulations that they've put forward for these products. Yep.
What do you think about the issue? I know we're talking about smoking mostly here, and smoking products, but about government imposing rules on packaging that would limit unhealthy foods for children.
So I think when we're talking about minors, that's certainly different. Our focus as a consumer advocacy group is only on adult consumers. That being said, the only addition I could add to that is I think there has to be some respect for parental discretion. And we certainly do see that paternal aspect handed down from government on adult consumers and then on adult parents. So that is worrisome. But in terms of our mission and our mandate, we only discuss adult consumers.
The Smokers Vote initiative itself, has that been aligned for 2.5 months, as you said?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. There's a question back there.
I have several questions, Mr.
Yep.
Clement. I'm unaware of any plain packaging provisions in Bill C-45. They're not there. They say that you can't do celebrity endorsements, you can't target youth, you have to have a stop sign with a THC. There's no plain packaging provisions in the bill. What regulations are you referring to?
The recommendations and mandate that have been put forward by Health Canada. So Health Canada has come forward. To my knowledge, they have been.
Yep. Were they gazetted?
That is a good question. I don't have the date of that.
You read the regulations?
Yes, sir.
Because I've never seen those, and they're not in the Act. And in fact, that was a point of contention, as you know, in Health Committee hearings in the Commons and Senate Legal Affairs Committee hearings in the Senate. And in fact, the provisions on tobacco packaging are much more severe than they are on cannabis.
They are more severe, but the severity difference I don't think is appropriate given the continuum of risk. In terms of the specifics on whether or not that goes through, my understanding is that there has been no movement to further relax what will be the packaging mandate for cannabis products. So I haven't seen any statement or any backpedaling from legislators that suggests that it will not be the plain packaging mandate or plain packaging provisions that were put forward by Health Canada for cannabis products.
I want to look those up. You don't remember? They were sometime in the last 3 months, you said?
Last time in the last 6 months, yes.
Those regulations?
Yes.
It didn't pass till the 3rd week of June. So
of course.
So at some point this summer, you believe you saw those regulations?
I believe I saw Health Canada's statement and mandate. That, sure.
Did they gazette the regulations sometime since the 3rd week of June? If I didn't see them, and I read the Gazette twice a week.
Sure.
But no one's infallible.
Yep.
I may have made a mistake. If you say they're there, I'm going to look them up.
To my knowledge, although not listed in C45, because C45 does list advertising and marketing restrictions and things like that, my understanding is that the packaging provisions that sparked this campaign, or that we're talking about specifically, are going through. I don't know the mechanism in which they are going through, but I know that they're not specifically listed in the Act. But my understanding is that that they will be mandated to a point where that will be how cannabis products.
So they haven't been gazetted. Something you heard.
Yes, sure.
So that's quite a difference.
Sure.
I'm a consumer in Canada. How can I join the CCC?
So there are two ways you can join the CCC. You can engage with us in terms of our online activities and our in-person events. So we have consumers from across the country. When we host events, whether they be roundtable events, press conferences, meet and greets, hosting lectures, those are the various ways in which consumers can engage with the content that we put out nationwide.
I don't get a membership card.
No. You can certainly sign up and become a supporter, either financially or not financially, of the Consumer Choice Center.
And how many of those do you have in Canada?
It's hard to put a number on it, but I would say that the number of consumers who have gone through that process of pledging their support is between 5,000 and 8,000.
8,000 in Canada.
Approximately.
Contributions to you.
Not contributions, but have signed up. So I made the distinction between you can.
Who shows up at a news conference?
Sure. No, I understand.
How many donors, how many members, how many active supporters do you have in Canada?
Active supporters, that does not distinguish between financial and, because we don't require you to donate to be financial. I would say probably 300 to 400 individual financial contributors.
That's in about the last year, right?
Correct.
I want to ask you, you have stated, you started a year ago, right? September 2017?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
You've advocated for paid blood plasma clinics.
Yes, I have.
Amendments to the Broadcasting Act to get rid of CanCon regulations. I have to tell you, Mr. Clement, I can't find 1 in 1,000 consumers who would rate those as consumer issues. What did one of your 300 supporters say we need paid blood plasma clinics?
Actually, it was a hemophilia patient who reached out to me directly. I was unaware of the issue, and a group of ethicists and economists put together a letter for Health Canada, which sparked my interest in the topic, which is what prompted the media appearances and the op-ed that was published in the Star.
What about CanCon?
That mostly stems from consumers being irritated at the overregulation of streaming products such as Netflix, etc. When Canadian consumers engage with us on that issue, they very regularly are irritated that what they have access to is different than what American consumers have.
The Broadcasting Act doesn't apply to Netflix. It applies to regulated broadcasters.
Sure. But the regulations that are applied to broadcasters impact consumers because they decide, in many senses, what the government thinks that consumers need to watch. And so we have many consumers across the country who do actually raise concerns on that issue, who say, why is the government telling me that I have to have 30% Canadian content in this program scheme? Why is it not up to me to decide what I want to consume? And I use Netflix as an example because that's a more consumer-driven model where consumers, for the most part, make more of that decision for themselves.
You've had members say, I am tired of my radio stations playing Canadian music. I'm fed up with that.
Not specifically Canadian music, not that I can recall offhand, but certainly other subjects, yes.
Okay. Do you accept any funding in Canada from a federally registered Canadian lobbyist?
No.
None of them are registered lobbyists in Canada.
Do any of our contributors?
Talking about your funding.
Yes.
Donations from 300
people. Oh, yeah,
okay,
sorry, yes. Yep. No, we don't. We do not.
A matter of policy, or you just haven't gotten around to it?
I wouldn't. It's just not something that we've done. We primarily are funded through private individuals and foundations. So we're not in the business of lobbying in any technical or legal sense.
Well, but you've seen the commentary. You do take funding from Cannabis company, apparently. Right?
We were very forthcoming in terms of any relationship we've had with any industry in the past.
They're not a registered lobbyist? They're not part of any registered lobby?
Not to my knowledge.
Tobacco manufacturers? Take money from them?
We've disclosed that on our website in terms of event sponsorship. That was, to my knowledge, 2 years ago.
Google Corporation? Do I have to go down the list? Can you just tell me who's funding him? Because I have to tell you, Mr. Clement, I don't think Canadians care about blood plasma. You seem a little shaky on the regs on plain packaging, and you have 300 members, but you have a lot of staff. The money's coming from somewhere.
So we don't have 300 members. Yes, that is not what qualifies as a member.
I understand you count everyone who walks in the room as a
No.
member, but 300 cash
No,
donors.
I count everyone who has signed up, who has pledged their support, or who has engaged with us in a meaningful way that would qualify as a donor, with the exception of actually giving money.
Understand that, and that's 10,000.
Closer to 8,000.
Just counting everyone except those who gave you money. The money's coming from somewhere, Mr. Clement.
Yes.
You didn't participate in the parliamentary hearings. The hearings went on for a year and a half. They were tiresome and exhaustive. You didn't join. You didn't read the regulations. You didn't testify. As the man pointed out, you show up, 72 hours before this becomes law to talk about regulations on plain packaging that don't actually exist.
They do exist. I think that your statement there is false. They do exist. I think you've identified a disparity between whether or not they're in C45 or not, but that doesn't change the purpose of why we're here, and it doesn't change the reality that those regulations are coming down the pipe, and there has been no inclination or no indication from legislators that they're going to change them.
A couple of questions in French, perhaps, for Mr. Boivin.
Sure.
Vous êtes un consommateur?
Oui.
OK. Pourquoi vous êtes ici aujourd'hui? C'est quoi le problème fondamental que vous voyez?
En fait, c'est par rapport au sujet des paquets qui vont devenir neutres. J'avais une opinion par rapport à ça et j'en ai parlé avec des amis, dont des gens qui travaillaient pour le Consumer's Choice. Puis, par la suite des choses, on s'est contactés. Puis, à force de donner mon opinion, ils m'ont demandé de venir participer à la conférence.
Le problème que vous voyez dans les réglementations?
Ben moi, je pense que la décision revient au consommateur d'avoir l'information ou non sur le paquet. Puis je crois que de changer, de mettre des paquets neutres ne va pas nécessairement changer le problème. Je pense que c'est de contourner un peu les choses puis de prendre justement les adultes là, pour un peu des enfants là, par rapport à leurs décisions personnelles, même si ça encourt des problèmes de santé ou quoi que ce soit.
Le gouvernement dit on veut protéger les enfants, on ne veut pas que les paquets soient attrayants pour les enfants.
Ouais, ben personnellement, je crois pas que ça va passer par le paquet. Je suis sûr et certain que pour les enfants, on doit faire absolument le tout en possible, mais je crois pas que c'est vraiment la solution. Je crois que ça va passer plus par l'éducation, puis par l'information que d'essayer de cacher les choses derrière un rideau.
Un consommateur de marijuana?
Oui, absolument, oui.
Are there any other questions? Thank you.